Yeah. So we're going to go to the next part before we do our biscuits. What's the first thing that we should do if we're going to make biscuits?
Dry ingredients.
Turn on the oven. Thank you. Preheat the oven. Okay? I'm not going to mix around and upset the shell. Throw everything in there. You can do that every day in here? Let's see, you're not the brain. No. Alright. We're cutting in the fat. We're going to make a biscuit that should be flaky and light. Okay? What we don't want to see is a real dense, heavy biscuit. I don't want you to overwork it. I don't want to see anything that comes out really on the dry, tough side, flat. Cutting in the fat basically means we're going to take the shortening and or butter, working with our fingers, break it into the flour. Okay? So if we're doing that right, we've got these little bits of fat that we're going to then coat with flour. Okay? We don't want it too large chunks of fat. We don't want it too small. Working with your hands, if I work this, just combine everything together and we'll just continue with the lecture. Do I need to sift this? Why not? Simple reason, why not? A lot of the questions I'm going to ask are not going to require you to have, extensive baking experience.
You don't need to smooth this in there.
It'll work.
I don't want that light, right?
No, I won't make it any lighter because we're making a dough. If I'm making a batter, if I'm making a cake, then I would want to sift it. Okay?
You want to sift it before you crush it?
No. It's going to vary. It would say 3 cups sifted flour or 3 cups flour, comma, sifted. You weigh it before or after, depending on how it's worded. Okay, in most baking, it's going to be after it's measured. Commercial baking. And all I'm doing is taking a wire whip and just blending it together. It doesn't need to be that well blended. Alright. Your butter, cut up into small little pieces, shortening, and going just as it is. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do now is to combine fat with the flour, and we're basically calling that cutting in. So if I've got my little piece of fat, the little blue coated with flour, it's going to help give us that nice layering. Okay? After I get this done, we're going to add the liquid to it. Now, you don't want to take this dry and fat, especially if you're using your hands, because body temperature is going to soften the butter and the shortening up to where you blend it so much it's going to look like an uncooked roux. What do we call that? No, an uncooked roux. What do we call that? Come on, you guys had it in CF3.
Beurre.
Beurre, okay? B-E-U-R-R-E-M-A-N-I-E. If I get that to where the butter, the shortening, and the flour is completely blended together, it's going to be really hard for that liquid to grab hold of anything. The same as if you took a roux, cold roux, uncooked roux, a beurre, and just poured cold stock into it and tried to blend it in. It's not going to work. So we want that flour, dry ingredients, coating all those little pieces of shortening or butter, okay, which is now going to form that little bit of dough around each piece of fat. Okay, so now when it's formed together and goes into the oven, we're going to have a lot better layering, a lot more flakiness on that biscuit. Again, if you were to combine this completely together, we could eventually get all that buttermilk worked into it, but it's not going to have the lightness and flakiness. See on this one, you can see the layering. That's what we want to be able to achieve. If this was a completely blended together fat and flour, I wouldn't have this. Okay, your biscuit should separate like this when you're done with it. Okay, if you were to go to the other extreme, this one again will separate as well. Multi-layered. What is it? Pillsbury, they make those biscuits that, seriously, they're like real thin layers and they're grams, yeah. They're not a good biscuit. You bite into it and it doesn't have that texture. It's almost moist compared to what you're going to be making today. Okay? Alright, dusting flour. Got my cutter, rolling pin. You're going to want everything together when we get started. We don't want this here. Is that why you got it out? It's all mine up there? No. You try to cut in the fat with the flour. You got to be careful. You go 10 seconds too long with it, especially on this small an amount. That's where we can get that raw and cooked roux texture. Okay. The dry ingredients, basically, we're just going to be taking and breaking the fat up, keeping flour between your hands and the fat. If you're doing both butter and shortening, I want you to break the butter into it first. These are two totally different textures. You could at home, you could use a pastry cutter, which kind of looks like the big wire whip that's in a U shape with a handle across the top. Not really recommended for large quantity. Okay, and all I'm doing again is I'm bringing my thumb down across and I'm breaking up that fat. I want to be able to still see small bits of the fat. If you're doing the butter and the shortening, do the butter first and then get the shortening worked into it because the butter's firmer. What's the sugar in this for? Other than the obvious, it's going to make it sweet. Pardon me?
Color?
All right, no. What?
Color?
Yes. Sugar caramelizes. It's going to give us better browning. All right, this is what we're looking for. See how crumbly that looks? Don't go beyond this stage because you go beyond this, that's where we're going to have a problem getting that liquid absorbed into it. So all these little pieces of fat, they're all coated with flour and the dry ingredients. So when I add the liquid to it, that will form the dough, and we'll have those little bits of fat within little balls of dough. Am I boring you, Jack?
No, I'm just tired.
Try getting up at 4:30. Tomorrow morning, I have all your phone numbers. I'm going to call you guys when we get up tomorrow. I have no problem with that. Stupid cats. 10 days we had off. Little SOBs had no idea what vacation was, and why is Daddy not getting up to feed us? Anytime I wanted to sleep in, any day. Monsters were up waking me up. All right, I've dusted the table. Okay, toss the flour. Okay, we need quite a bit because our initial rolling is going to be a little on the wet side. Okay, don't do this. Okay, it's too blotchy. All right, make them all in the center and add all the buttermilk. Using your rubber spatula, I'm now going to go around, turning the bowl, combining the wet with the dry. You can overdo it at this point too. I had one person this morning that had this mixture so worked together in here, it almost didn't work. If we want that light, flaky biscuit, we don't want to do what too much at this point.
Work it.
We don't want to over knead it. Okay? Put a little more flour over the top. Dusting the table today, just use all-purpose flour. Take a Mah cup, some flour, and when we're done with it, I want all of that flour to go back into here. Okay, what we scrape off the table at the end of the day, we don't want to sift and put in here because the flour here has moisture added to it and it's got some fat and everything else in it. So anything you take out, don't take out 3 or 4 cups of flour. One of the lower, smaller Mah cups is fine. Alright, I want the flour in my hands and I'm just going to form this dough together. That's it. How many times did I need that? 4 or 5 times. 6 max. I wouldn't go any more than that because if I do too much mixing, I'm developing the gluten. Okay? We're going to go roughly not 3/4, about a ½ inch, a little more than a ½ inch thick. Okay? We should get approximately a dozen out of this. I didn't like it last term when I came over and you were recording me then.
All right, anybody's liked it.
Don't do this rolling pin. I've seen a lot of people do this. If you wipe too heavy, there's no flour on the rolling pin. Flour the dough. Okay? With dough, do not start in the front and roll out to the far side because if I do, basically I'm pushing all this dough on the top over. Work in the center, going out. Okay? Off the sheet tray. Alright, now when you cut out biscuits, you want to make sure that we cut straight down, push straight down, and then twist. Fingers around the top edge. Don't do this, okay? What little vacuum is going to be formed in there, you're going to not get as good an edge on the biscuit, okay? Also, do not cut like so, with those big edges, okay? I'm going to cut it right up to the edge. Okay, even on that, if I were to overlap, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit here. I've got a very slight curved edge here. I don't have to be right on that. After this is baked, is anyone going to notice that little indentation there? No. Get them all cut out. Don't go cut in place, okay? Get everything cut out. What do I do with the scraps?
Fold it up, cut some more biscuits.
Pardon me?
Pull it back together, cut some more biscuits.
Pull it back together. Don't pull it back together and do any more kneading to it, okay? Should they go together, touching each other, or separated?
Separated.
Why?
You don't want them baked into each other.
Pardon me?
You don't want them baking into each other when they bake.
It'll allow the heat to go around.
You need to do, and not unheard of, you need to do 1,200 biscuits for a big party. How many trays would it take if I set them apart like this?
A lot.
A lot. Okay? Will I get a better product like this or like this?
Spread out.
Spread out?
Depends on the dough, doesn't it?
You don't touch it.
Why would this be better?
Because the sides stay soft when you break them apart instead of being cooked apart.
Okay. Give me another reason why they're better if they're baked side by side. Simple reason. Keep going with that.
They'll all rise about the same. It's not gonna, you're not gonna they'll all come out similar sizes, not so much like one's tiny, one's...
No, this is going to make sure they're all the same size.
Well, yeah, but that way that's sometimes not everyone's gonna...
They're pushing against each other. They're lying against each other as they're rising. I'm going to get a much more uniform top to them. Okay, if it's off on its side like this, separate, it may have a tendency to have a little bit less than flat top to it. Okay, you can go straight rows, or you can, if you wanted to fill it in closer, you could. Rolling pins, when we're done with them, what do? Wash them and rinse them?
No.
Wipe them.
Wipe them. More in the afternoon than they did in the morning class. What'd you do? What'd you do? I got more in the B shift than I did for the A shift. Small little one. Can I put this on there and not waste it?
Yeah.
No. Why not?
That looked too fast.
Yeah, by the time this is done, what's this going to look like? It's going to be all dried up. Okay. All right. They go into the oven about 12 minutes, plus a couple here or there, depending on which oven, which location they're going to be. You can, I've seen people brush these with butter or brush them with heavy cream. It's not necessary to put butter on them, because if I put butter on it, what's a guest going to do? As soon as they get the biscuit, they open it up and do what?
Butter it.
Put more butter on it. Thank you, sir. All right. Questions? All right. You're baking individually. Know what you're doing. How many is this going to be your first time ever making biscuits? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the rest of you, this will be... Your biscuits should come out good.
Better than the last one.
So,
Should we mark it on the attendance sheet as to those who know how to bake biscuits?
Yes.
And then